So right now I've got all the fixtures set up before I even brought the camera in. I'm sandwiched between our fill light, which this 24x36 silk, and our Light Gear Light Mat 2 are directly over the table where our products are. This is essentially my fill light. Meanwhile, behind me here is the main key. So this is a 6x6 wag flag of magic cloth from Modern Studio Equipment. Magic cloth will cut your light by around 3.5 stops, and also it is going to drastically change the color temperature of any light that you diffuse it with, because it has this kind of warm color to it. So behind this is the Aperture Nova 600C, and man, what beautiful color I'm getting out of this. I absolutely love the Nova 600. I did briefly compare it to a really old cream source panel, so if you missed that video, I'll leave a link to that down in the description below. How I'm able to do this before I even bring a camera in is because you guys know I spent a couple years as a gaffer, but also I lean heavily on the PCam Pro app. This video is in no way sponsored by PCam Pro. I don't even know the developers of that app. I literally bought it for $30. It is an expensive app, but it's a one-time fee. I bought it in 2020, I believe. It is my most leaned on app for filmmaking. Great tools in there for both camera and lighting. I use this exposure tool within the PCam app, and I can go in there and decide what f-stop I want to shoot at, what filter I'm going to use, and then it tells me how much exposure I'm going to need out of my key light. And from there, I can know what my fill light will be. So I know for this product video, I want to do a 2-to-1, which is a one-stop difference. I recently did a pretty well accepted video on contrast ratios with real Hollywood references. So if you missed that or you're new here, I'll leave a link to that down in the description below. I highly recommend you check that out if you are brand new to contrast ratios. Because this is a product shot, stop motion, I wanted a 2-to-1. So that means my key light back here, the Nova 600, is going to be twice as bright as my fill, which is this Light Gear Light Mat, or literally a one-stop difference between the two. So if I'm getting a 5.6 out of this Nova in 6x Magic Cloth, then I want to get a 4 out of this Light Gear Light Mat in the silk. Or you can look at it in terms of foot candles like I do, 60 foot candles out of my key, 30 foot candles out of my fill. I went with 5,000 Kelvin as my color temperature for this shoot, because as the late and great Jeffrey Boyle, rest in peace, member of ASC, he taught us that all digital sensors have a native, quote unquote, native Kelvin reading of 5,000. Whereas in the ASC manual, it says most digital sensors native white balance is 5,500 Kelvin. So I think you're safe anywhere between 5,000 and 5,500 Kelvin. Now, why would I want to do that though? Well, because this is a product shoot, right? So in the world of product photography, product cinematography, you want to stay true to the colors of the product. That is something, if you're on a real commercial shoot, that, the bigwig clients, they're going to be really anal about that, because that is their product. Those colors have been chosen for a reason, so they expect the accuracy of the colors of their product. So for the most neutral, I went with a native white balance for the digital sensor, and I just went with 5,000 Kelvin. So in order to stay true to that, I needed to match both the Nova 600, my key, to the Light Gear Light Mat 2, my fill, making sure they're both giving me 5,000 Kelvin with the diffusions included with that. For instance, with this Nova 600, in order to get it to give me a 5,000 reading, I had to actually set the fixture to 5,600 Kelvin. That is quite a bit of a difference. Now, that doesn't mean the Nova is inaccurate, because it's not. It's an extremely accurate fixture. It's one of my favorite LED fixtures, and honestly, it's really my only favorite aperture fixture. I'm really blown away by the Nova 600C, mainly because of its output and its accuracy. But what's causing it to have to dial it up colder than what it actually is this magic cloth, okay? And also the magic cloth was adding a little bit of green to it as well, so I did have to add a little tiny bit of magenta into the Nova, and the Nova being the type of fixture it is, you can dial in the tint values by 0.1% increments. And it's only on 41% to give me my 61 foot candles. The color is so perfect. I don't have to add any light filter, no camera filter. Whereas on the Light Gear Light Mat 2, as you'll notice, when I switch that on, Even though I am able to get it to give me a proper 5000, there isn't any tint control on the ballast. All I have is a bicolor knob and a luminance knob. So you really just have to tweak those and keep taking readings until you get it somewhere neutral. But as you can see, it is giving me a little tiny color shift, but I think that's something we can easily add to the tint in camera. So now I'm going to take a reading with both the key and fill on. Don't forget the ultra bounce is playing here too. And I just want to see what we're getting for exposure on the table. And there it is. So I'm actually getting 5100 and still getting a little bit of magenta, which is probably honestly coming out of this light gear light mat. So you just have to add a quarter green in camera. All right, so before I bring in the camera, I am using Artemis Pro. I just put some random items on the table here, and I want to do that so I know what lens I'm going to live on. Because this is a stop motion thing, obviously we're going to be living on the tripod, we're going to be living on one lens. You don't want anything to move in terms of camera and focal length, so I want to make sure everything is perfect, because once you start rolling stop motion, you're kind of stuck with those settings and that positioning and the focal length. Obviously, I'm sure you all are aware of that. Now keep in mind the exposure, this is the cell phone. So let me see, 28 or 35. I think we'll go with the 28 Leica R. Beautiful, beautiful lens. It's not gonna require any diffusion because it's from the 70s. So that's what we're gonna go with. The 28mm, no speed booster, no nonsense like that. And we'll just bring it in and get going. We had to improvise. I had to put an 8x8, basically built a tent around the whole table, and it's because these things are highly reflective. I thought that it was the cellophane wrapping. Turns out they're just like little tiny mirrors. So I had to really fight all those reflections. And at a last minute improvise, this is as good as I could do. Just a big old 8x8 silent half grid draped over the whole thing, made a tent. The ultra bounce is wedged in there up against the table. So because I didn't get dulling spray, we're using dry shampoo.
Hairspray.
Oh, it's hairspray? Oh,
dry shampoo is
oh, cool. Cool, so it's just straight up hairspray, which is actually a trick we do all the time. But these things are so reflective. I mean, even here on the Sony, you can see how reflective they are. But it actually is helping a lot. Final bonus tip for any of you using stop motion, get yourself a small HD monitor for this image overlay tool. It is a game changer. So if you're unfamiliar with this, the small HD monitors have image capture and image overlay. And the image capture tool allows you to take a screen grab of the image that you're capturing, and it stores it within the internal monitor's SD card. And then with this image overlay, here you see me struggling with the horrific touchscreen of the Indy 5. I hate touchscreen monitors, but it is what it is. But the image overlay allows you to lay the previous image that you took over the image that you're actually capturing with your camera. Here you can see it in action. So this is a game changer for if you do a lot of stop motion, help yourself out, get yourself a small HD monitor.
Thank you. I gave him an artistic reason for shooting with a really warm look, and he bought it. Whereas in fact the reality was we were shooting with a really warm light because the camera couldn't cope. And it was a way round it. DP bullshitting to get himself out of trouble. That's a continuing theme.